I think in creating this episode, I'm realizing that this library is as big as it is because I have a decent list of Autobuy authors. Let's get into it. In order to create this list for Autobuy authors, I really had to think about, okay, why is this author on this list? So here are my requirements. I had to have read at least 2 books that are not in the same series. So if I fell in love with one series, but then the other works weren't that great for me, that's not an Autobuy author for me. I genuinely have to love a variety of things that you put out. 2, for this list, I think for the most part, like this list is for everyone who is still alive and still making work. My list of authors where I'm buying their entire catalog is very different. That includes, Butler, who else? Morrison's or Neil Hurston. Like that's a different list. Okay, this is people who are still putting out work. Anytime I see a post go up saying, "Hey, this is a new release coming out this date," I'm like, period, I'm getting it. And something I'm finding is that my Autobuy list fluctuates. Like there are some authors that were on the list a few years ago and they're no longer on that for a number of reasons. So, it really does just depend on the mood and how I feel and how I connect with the work. So let's start with the Autobuy authors that I'm like, without a doubt, I am buying everything they put out. First off, we have Rebecca Roanhorse. And I'm not doing this in any particular order. Don't ask me to rank things. That's not ever gonna happen because too much. But with Rebecca Roanhorse, I read her comic book, which is, hold on. I read her comic book first. I find that with a lot of my authors that are on this list, I was introduced to them through comics first. So I read this one. I thought it was great. There is outside of Maya, who is like really good in here, there's another superhero in here that I found very intriguing. Their magic, their powers comes from generational magic and be able to like see through someone's lineage. So I just thought that was really cool. It does remind me of the show, but yeah, like this one was really good. So I read that and then did the audiobook for Black Sun. Oh my goodness. I don't know why I put it off for so long to read this book, but it was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Oh man, like this series is one of those series where, and I'm terrible, I will always say this, I'm terrible at committing to series. But I immediately put the second book on hold at my library because it was absolutely fantastic. The characters, the world building, 1,000%. And like the fact that King Lu has a has a blurb here says a lot. Says a lot. All right, next up is Tatiana Obit. I'm girl. And I just had an interview with her a few weeks back. That is going to publish very, very soon. But yeah, I love her work. Specifically, I love how she world builds. It's a very specific skill that not a lot of people have. Like El Penelope is a very good world builder. But yeah, Tatiana, like this book was my personality for like several weeks. I'm still trying to find swords. Like I have one more sword to get to like match this. This book was just the love letter to Black women and our trials and triumphs that I absolutely loved. What's the other book? I have it here. Bones to the Wind. Yo, you want a new adult adventure? That book is it. In this world, they are living in the bones of a mythological, I think it was it's a dragon, right? It's a dragon. They're living in the bones of it and how society is broken down depending on where you live. The fuck? Great. It's a great time, okay? Great time. I need people, like, more people need to read her work. Okay, now I know people are gonna want to tussle with this decision here, but I have my reasons, okay? One, I firmly believe that not every author, not every book that you fall in love with needs to be like a popular 5-star, everybody is flocking to it type of one. So, with that being said, Cassandra Clare. I've read enough of her work where I'm like, okay, some of this is a little weird. Some of this ain't all there. But I fucks with it. Let's go. Like, she has this one where the cover is like, let me get that one. Like, you know, this book has been all over the place, nothing but black and teeth. The cover is phenomenal, right? But inside of it, it reads like a campy campfire story. Where you're like, huh. And like the flagrant use of the F word. You know, it's like, okay, you know, okay. Not terrible, but also, But it didn't stop me from buying her next book, which was Hammer on Bone was the next one for me. And this one was fucking amazing. It's a Lovecraftian horror story. Amazing, right? I've read just about everything else I've read has really been a hit or miss. I'm gonna be honest, right? But for some reason, I'm still like, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna read this. Because I think that's the most important part, right? Like, there's a difference between buying things for an author who's an Autobuy and collecting. And, like, I'm still reading the work, so I'm not, like, turned off by it. I really need to process this. All right, next up, we have V. Castro. I fell in love with V. Castro with Goddess of Filth. It's a quick novella. It really does break down like indigenous religions and I hope I'm like phrasing this right, but indigenous religions and Christianity and how they connect with people of today. I read that book like right behind another book that unpacks Christianity from a black cultural lens, and then another one that unpacks it right behind um another black cultural lens, but with hoodoo and voodoo. And yeah, I feel like as a result, V. Castro has just been like on my list. The Haunting of Alejandra was really good. Like it spoke to me as a mother. It hurt. It was uncomfortable at times, but it was great for me. So yeah, V. Castro, definitely on the list. Okay, next up, this author has been everywhere on the indie fantasy romantasy scene, and that is Elizabeth Stevens. I fell in love with her work. Ooh, is that even in here? Okay, so I randomly came across her work a few years back. I'm gonna say when I had first started my Bookstagram. So maybe like spring 2021. And I had won a giveaway for Taken to Varaxia. And it was signed, right? So I'm like, all right, let me read this. Yo, inhaled this book in less than a day. Inhaled it. Elizabeth Stevens is another person who I believe is absolutely wonderful when it comes to world building and community in her stories. The way she uplifts and shows diversity of black women in her stories is amazing. Yo, I remember reading this, like this was my reread. I think I reread it maybe 5 or 6 times within a span of a month. Loved it. Found out that, you know, alien tail sex is cool. Yeah. It's cool. And so so yeah, like this entire series was great. Lord of Population, I read the original one before there was like this modification with it where I think like books 2 and 3 got mashed together, and then like there was a lot of editing that happened with it. But I had read the first book prior to it getting really popular or big on BookTok, and I enjoyed the shit out of it. So yeah, Elizabeth Stevens will always be an Autobuy for me. And this series, I'm hoping to get all of them in physical. There was a time where I kept these on my Kindle, but now that, you know, I just want physicals of these now. And these in particular. I don't want the new ones. I don't know if anybody else is like this, but I have a special connection towards whatever edition I'm reading. So like this edition of Octavia Butler, like I really went out my way to find this because this was the edition that I found in the library when I first introduced to Octavia Butler. So I'm very particular about what edition I add to my library. All right, next up, it's another horror. Victor Laval. Which one? I don't even remember which one I read first. Oh, that's how I got introduced to him. Okay, so I learned about Victor Laval while I was obsessing over John Jennings and his work. John Jennings is another Autobuy for me, by the way, but he comes up later. Hey, future Keisha here, just letting you know that my brain forgot to talk about John Jennings because I had already said his name. It makes sense to me, okay? But John Jennings is definitely an Autobuy. I own most of his work, and I've already talked about Megascope. So let's continue on with Victor Laval. So yeah, I was looking at these end conversations that are on YouTube, and because I do enjoy like listening to these interactions with authors and how these creatives come together and all that. But he was having a conversation with John Jennings, and I was just mesmerized with the things he was saying. So I was like, all right, let me check out his work. And it was The Destroyer, which is a Frankenstein retelling. It's a graphic novel that came out through Boom, I believe. And yeah, I was like, okay, this is cool. I like this. The artwork is great. The story was great. What I love most about what Victor Laval does is how he centers the Black family in his stories, and like how the Black family interacts and deals with oppressive systems around them in oppressive structures, right? So this is the latest one that I read, Lone Woman. I'm on that bandwagon. If you haven't read it, please do. It's absolutely phenomenal. I still remember the little blind boys in the blind boys in this book are out of fucking pocket. But this book was great. Definitely please read it. All right. You would think I'm halfway done, but I'm not. Next up, I believe she is the only one that made it onto the list, with me only having read one book. That meant that the book was so phenomenal that Yellow Wife had me in knots the whole time, crying. It's very rare that, it's not even that rare. There are certain books that'll just have me stuck. Like, can't move, can't function. I just in knots. And that is this. This is a neo-slave narrative, and neo-slave narrative is something that I want more people to read. I understand my Black community saying how they're uncomfortable with a lot of things, but really it's very different than what, like, in terms of form and function with a slave narrative. It still has traumatic stuff, obviously. But the way it's written, the way the endings are, it's very different. If y'all want me to go any further into that, I could definitely do that, because I've been wanting to, like, get people on the bandwagon about reading neo-slave narratives more often. But this one was absolutely phenomenal. It's inspired by the Half Devil's Acre that's in Virginia, and it's inspired by the wife of the man who ran it. Whew. This was a lot to handle, definitely, but Sadika Johnson put her foot in this. It was written absolutely beautifully. I do believe that there is a way you can write traumatic things, but it not be in a traumatic way, if that makes sense. Yeah, so like, if you ever get a chance, if you ever want to look into neo-slave narratives, Like, this one is a great one to read. Next up, we have Aake Mzi. I think the only two books I have not read is the romance book, You Made a Death, You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, and then the poetry collections. Those are the only two I have not read. But everything else has been straight fucking bangers. Bangers. I love Aake Mzi's work is so radical in its authenticity, in its love of self, in finding oneself, and like it's powerful. This book right here had me renovating my life. It's a weird way to put, but like I was like, all right, if I'm gonna be here on this planet, I am going to love every inch of me. I'm going to create the best environment for myself to thrive. And this book helped me do that. If you are going to read this or you haven't read the fictional tale that's very much connected to this one, yeah, read this first and then go into that one, in my opinion. Both are great, but this one gives you a little more insight into what happens in that book. It helps like create more depth with it. Not to say it needs any help. I'm just saying if you're gonna read them in a particular order, that's the way I do it. But yeah, I mean, whose Autobuy list are they not on? Next up, another author that should be on everyone's Autobuy list. Elizabeth Acevedo. I love her work so much. I specifically love her audiobooks. This is that one author where like I'm gonna buy the physicals, yeah, sure, but I'm listening to that audiobook first. The way she invokes spirit into her books is amazing. Absolutely amazing. She had me crying in this book. Actually, every single one. With the Fire on High. What? I implore you, if you're going to do Elizabeth Acevedo, do her audiobooks. Even if you're not an audiobook person, I promise you, it will make you an audiobook person. She is phenomenal. I will say, that adult book, about a 3-star. But I still am gonna buy it. It still keeps her on the list. She's good. Now, would I be a black sci-fi fantasy lover without having N.K. Jemisin on this list? I am using the Inheritance trilogy because even though I love the Broken Earth trilogy, this one has my heart. I love when gods are in books and they are doing whatever the hell they wish. It's something that I had posed on threads. Like, I find it very interesting how gods, humans, like how there's like that intersection of gods, humans, and the taboo that constantly happens in works of literature. And this book, the series, is a mashup of all three of those things. This is another series that I worked my ass off to finish, to inhale, bought the audio, but I think I have this series in 2 forms, audiobook and physical, and that's not something I do very often. My library hole was about to end, and I was like, absolutely not. I need to finish this book. So yeah, this is one of my favorites from her, but I've read everything except Dreamblood, or like that duology. Like, that's my last thing to read. Everything else I've read and everything else I've enjoyed, even the cities one. And y'all can fight me with that if you want. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I understand where she was coming from with that second one. We're all pissed at what's happening. As a native New Yorker, we're all pissed at what happened, what's happening in New York with this mayor. Disappointed all around with him. So I get why that book looked the way it did. I have a heavy bias towards it. Okay? But yeah, N.K. Jemisin. I mean, like, far sec, and the fact that, ooh, and the fact that she not only does books well, she's just like Rebecca Roanhorse, where comics, phenomenal. Far Sector is always a comic that I am trying to get people to read. I think Gerard Way, who, you know, frontman of MCR, but he also put together Young Animal. He has a letter in the front of Far Sector explaining how he, like, wanted her to be the one to write this story. I agree with him wholeheartedly, and I'm happy that he busted his butt to get NK to do this. And the fact that they have the epilogue that's in the DC Power that came out in February. Yo, NK is that bitch. Okay, next up is Terry J. Benton Walker. He got on there because of this book. This is a collection of stories called The White Guy Dies First. As you can see, I have tapped quite a bit in this. Terry J. Benton Walker is one, I think he's the only one who has I think he's my only YA Autobuy. I think so. Of books that I read. I really need to specify that, because I do have some that I just buy. But, like, in terms of books that I read, I think he's the only one that I'm actually, like, reading everything. Blood Guts was great for me. I love books that deal with generational conflict, generational traumas, and seeing these kids, like, say, yo, I'm done with this. Like, we're gonna fix this. We're gonna do it now. Let's get this shit done. Blood Dead spoke to me in a number of ways, so I absolutely love that. The White Guy Dies First. This shows, knowing that this was edited by him, and then his 2 stories in here are really great. Especially, yo, that first one. That first one needs to be a comic book. I will do whatever it takes. If we need to make a Kickstarter, I don't care. It needs to be a comic book. It was fucking done brilliantly. But seeing the way his mind works and how he put these together, how he edited this is a mind that I'm gonna kick my feet up and enjoy, like, living in his world. Like, cool, let's do this. But this was put together masterfully. I enjoyed every single one. Like, hopefully, prayerfully, I'm having an interview with them, because I was like, yo, I need to interview you guys about this. I'm hoping I can get, like, there was not a story that I did not enjoy. I have favorites, definitely, but there wasn't a story that I did not enjoy. To put that many bangers on here, I think is fucking impressive as shit. Like, Terry, I'm loving what you're doing, man. Next up, Syvia Moreno Garcia. I love something about me, even though I love heavy stuff, right? I love books that are breaking down systems and, like, really, like, ring you out. Yes. I love books that do that, but I also love my high society, first world problems. Oh my god, look at this. No. Like, I love my high society dramas. So this book was just everything. It was so light and still had its drama. Still, it felt like reading a soap opera, fantastical soap opera. It was great for me. Like, period, right? But this was not my introduction to Syvia Moreno Garcia. It actually was Mexican Gothic. I loved that book so much. So much. It was so creepy. It kept me engaged. Once again, I love when I can just fall into a world and see everything. And that book was so immersive. I loved it so much. I found out with that and Sorrowland that I really like when mushrooms are involved in books. It's a weird thing to, I think it's a weird thing to, like, enjoy, but I do. Mushrooms are fucking great. So yeah, Syvia Moreno Garcia. I am attempting to get everything. Alright, next up, Peter Shelley Clark. This is one of the few men I appreciate and love when he writes women. Let me say that again. There aren't many men that can write women well. Peter Jelly Clark does. This was a great book, but I always tell people like, yo, don't touch this book until you read the 2 short stories beforehand. They are great. Those books were my introduction to Peter Jelly Clark. I didn't even read this until after Black Eyed Drums and the 2 short stories. His work is absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait for Cattail. What's the book? I'm gonna put it here. But I cannot wait for it. Like, I thought that it was gonna come out, but then it got pushed out to August. But there was a preview that was on Kindle that is there for free. I'm not sure if it's still there, but the way I ran, skipped, and jumped to get it, I am excited. I am so excited for it. That's going to be one of the few books where I'm like, I'm going to clear everything. I'm going to read it right now. And I don't do that very often. River Solomon. Period. That's it. I don't need to say much. But I will. The 3 books that I have are stunners. They're amazing. The Deep, everybody talks about how great The Deep is. Based on Mami Wata, right? I don't want to pronounce it wrong. But that book is absolutely phenomenal. But what brought me to River Solomon is Sorrowland. This was the first book I had bought of theirs. And for someone who is raising a non-binary child, let me tell you, while I don't say you need to do what Vern does, we don't need to leave our children in the middle of the woods. That's not necessary. But it's great to find a novel that models how to raise kids. Just let them be who they are, right? Let them experience, navigate the world as they see fit. And then, like, have that internal conversation of, okay, where is the boundary? This book helped me understand how to raise my kids without putting gendered expectations on them. Because even in our society, you can have great intentions, right? But there's still things we do that still perpetuate those expectations and those roles. So this book really did help me take a step back and go, there are questions I need to be asking myself, and there are things I could be doing better. This book was absolutely phenomenal. Outside of that, it was absolutely phenomenal. This book deals with so much. It manages to break down and model so many things without being overwhelming. So, like, if you ever get a chance, read these. Like, let me tell I had such a great time with this book that, like I said, I'm not a person who does the sprayed edges special editions, but if there is an edition of a book that I want or need, I will go out my way and pay however I need to get it. So this book was out of print when I was looking for it, at least this cover. You know, they came up with the other one that looks like waves and it's very colorful, and I was like, no, I want the deep dark mermaid one. So this little novella cost me a little over $40 to get. I don't know how much it'll cost now. I know I got very lucky with this one. But yeah, this collection, I love that it's all blue too. Perfection. So I have other authors that are getting to really close to that. I also have some authors that I buy their things. It's not because I'm reading them, it's because I'm a collector and I'm curating my library to have certain authors in it, certain things. I'm big on collecting things that are important for the Black culture and community. So there are a lot of books that are centered around that. If you guys ever want to see any more, let me know. Like, share, tell me who is your favorite. Your Autobuy author is someone who you are constantly buying and reading. For this conversation, we're including reading, okay? Who is your Autobuy author? Like, share, comment, subscribe, all those great things. I'll catch you in the next one. Later.